Thank you guys for being here tonight. Today is September 15th, 2020. Our thought for today, the value of a man should be seen in what he gives and not in what he is able to receive. Albert Einstein. I want to go ahead and officially call this meeting to order tonight. We're going to have invocation. We're going to ask Commissioner Henderson if he would pray for us tonight. And following that, we're going to ask Commissioner Edwards if he would lead us in our pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will everyone bow their heads? Dear and Father, once again we come before you with thanksgiving in our hearts. We come just to say thank you for just us riding this morning, then allow us to continue during the day. We know that you are truly a good God, my Father, on whom sits up high and look down low. We thank you for everything we've done in our lives. We hope that you continue to guide this board. Guide them in the way that you would have them to go. This we pray. In our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Commissioners, you had an opportunity to look at the agenda tonight. I seek a motion that we approve the agenda. It's been motioned by Commissioner Mason and second by Commissioner Henderson. All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity that we allow citizens to come up and make comments about agenda topics only. If you would, please come at this time, please. Agenda topic only. I have 3 minutes to do so. Agenda topics only. Thank you. That portion of our comments are closed. Next on the agenda tonight is the chairman's report. Got a little change here. Tonight we have an update from the JDA, Ms. Sarah Hall and Mr. Jerry Sivio. Guys, if you would, please come up. And following them, we have a report from the IDA.
Good evening. Commissioners and Chairman Lloyd, great to see you, Ms. Fagan and Ms. Jackie. Thank you for having us. It's been a while since you've seen Jerry and I, but tonight we have a great JDA update for you. First thing I want to start with in Stanton Springs is StantonSprings.com has a full overhaul. So I'd advise you and challenge you to get out tonight and go to StantonSprings.com. Go look at the new website. We've spent quite a lot of time and energy on updating the site. This is the front image of the site, and it talks about just who we are as communities. It references all 4 communities. It talks about our properties as well as data. One of the things that's within the site on data, and you'll look into it and see, is we have established a partnership not only with the Stanton Springs area but with Newton County, is through a company called GIS Web Tech. GIS Web Tech is a direct information around data reporting, other kind of sites and information and details for the park. So again, please go and visit. The other thing when you get into it is we have now a virtual tour. This is a shot of the virtual tour. We've actually taken drone images with our cars, also from above, and over the new 18-acre pad site. So if you're looking out for new sites or people looking at it, want to see the progression down at Stanton Springs, please advise them to go look at this page. It's right there under the virtual tour. And I think many of you are familiar with the fact right now with our virtual tours is that obviously Shane and I represent the park, and we have been doing quite a lot of these. We have not had a lot of people coming in to the park necessarily, but what we have had is groups like this. And so now PowerPoint, other kind of presentation points of our virtual tour has become incredibly useful. And so instead of seeing us in person, you're now seeing this as a virtual introduction. We also have developed from the park a new master plan. So what you have seen here is a representation of the park. I don't know if the pointer works, but you'll see Facebook's property to the south of the parkway, and then you see Takeda to the north of the parkway, and then anything else in green is owned by Stanton Springs and what's left over of the park. You see the parkway extension to the east, and then the 18-acre pad site. The property to the south of Facebook at this time has a bit of a challenge from a topo measure, sewer, wetlands, things like that. And then we do have a little bit of frontage left over still along Highway 278. You notice here, this is the remaining 540 acres and just some utility information about the eastern portion of the park. So at this time, we've had to take a good amount of our time to really update what we're doing, make it all virtually available, readily accessible, and these are things that you will notice and see coming on our sites, and really a snapshot in of how we do virtual site visits with our group. And again, just more of a close-up image of what we have remaining. One of the things I want to mention to you and is Facebook. If you have not had a chance to go and see Facebook, and on your Facebook page, Facebook, and Jerry, if you don't mind helping me pass these to each of the commissioners, as Jerry acts as my Vanna White for this moment, is that Facebook's data center has put out community grants. And so they have now offered community grants for our local 4 communities. And so there are copies on the front table for citizens to pick up. We've also placed this out on our Facebook page, and we'll send this out to you as an email directly. And so what this means is nonprofits, organizations, businesses can sign up for these grants to help with funding sources coming back. Facebook has put this money in place to help our communities and put that back together. Many of you are familiar with other industries here in Newton County that do the same thing, but we're very excited about this. So for a community center, an educational opportunity, if you're focusing in small business, in STEM, this is a great opportunity. And please, if you have a business or a nonprofit organization that might want to look at this, please contact me, please contact Facebook, and we can get you a person to help talk about the grant. And so the grant itself is open until October, but we advise you to go ahead and sign up, get it in, put it in as soon as possible now. So you'll have those, and then again, there are some left there, and we'll send it to you electronically as well too. And then the last thing I'm going to mention before Jerry is that I think you all are still aware that Takeda is still working on a COVID-19 virus vaccine, and so they are still progressing and moving forward. Most major announcements have come out that they're in their final kind of time period going through progression, and so we still hope to see something toward the end of the year, beginning of the new year. Oh, and I will on the aerial shots. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the Parkway extension has been completed, and we've finished the final paving and striping. There's still some minor utility shiftings, adjustings, very, very minor. Landscaping is being bid out and will be installed as has been recommended. Ribbon cutting for this, it's kind of a major marketing event where we invite all of the statewide developers, but they're going to be limited who can come, consultants and things, folks like that. But that's pending lifting of the COVID-19 restrictions. And we really want to get the landscaping in also, so we can have a good, maybe sometime after the first of the year, toward the end of the year. We're just playing that by ear. We have some security options that are being assessed as we meet, including gating and security cameras. Cost for any and all of that has been discussed. On financial, we did update the budget ending June 30th, 2020 to reflect actual expenses and revenues. Final payment for the Parkway extension is expected or has already been paid in July. There's a minor amount left. The project is on budget, and contingency funds may be returned. The initial contract for reference is $3.5+ million, and it was paid for by use of land sale proceeds. And then the modification to the 2002 GFA loan, which allows Social Circle, Newton County Water and Sewer Authority to forego payments and interest on the loan from July through December of 2020. It'll still have to be paid, but it's a delay given all the activity and COVID stuff that's going around. So the 4 counties, the JDA, county tax assessors, tax commissioners, all adopted a procedurals manual that was prepared regarding tax assessments because we've got property, in some cases, some property spans 2 counties, but it's tax collection and tax digest reporting under House Bill 406. So, Sarah?
Thanks, Jerry. So, in conclusion, just want to show you some new aerial shots. These are from September in details here. As Jerry mentioned, you'll see some of the Parkway extension completion to the north end of the picture. Other details that come in here, you can see the 18-acre pad. The Parkway itself, and Brian, if you'll help me in there, show the mouse at the end. The Parkway actually runs to that middle end of the pad. What you see in the further foreground area is Facebook up to the left, and then Takeda to the right. And then that's the Bioscience Training Center. Just another shot, an angle of coming in. This here is actually down south of Facebook's facility, and you'll see Mike Hopkins, the Newton County Water and Sewage Authority, the Scott Emmons Reclamation Facility Center. If you also have not taken a trip down there, it's a great ride. Go look at it. Mike and his team have done amazing work in a very short period of time and have progressed through very nicely to make sure that our water and sewer supply is abundant for Stanton Springs and then future developments coming in. Again, just another angle, and you can see, as Jerry mentioned, the Parkway extension complete. So just wanted to, again, continue working, obviously, with Facebook and their details on construction progress, updates to our website. We will continue to watch COVID as we do virtual visits. They have been coming along nicely, but again, we look for the day that we can come back in person in that. So, again, thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Guys, any questions? No questions? Thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Next, thank you, Jerry, sir. Next, we'll have the IDA update.
Yes. Switch out people. All right. So thank you all for your time on the IDA update tonight. This is the first time, actually, that we are seeing you as officially as the Industrial Development Authority and with the connection of the Office of Economic Development. So I'm going to start here and say we got a new home, but it's the same process. And so our new home here with the Industrial Development Authority, it was established in 1967. And in that charter, we have 5 members of the board. I think many of you are all familiar with the man to my left here, former Commissioner Lanier Sims. And now our official chairman of the Industrial Development Authority. Who else is in the list on our IDA is always the mayor of Covington, and that is now Steve Horton, the BOC chairman, Marcello Baines, our chamber president, Ms. Harper. So Debbie's here tonight in support of this, and as well as we have another at-large member, and that is now Bill Dobbs. And then you have us, the Department of Economic Development, which is myself and Dave Byrne. Dave apologizes for not being here tonight. He's on project work away, and so when one of us is here and there, we're constantly moving. And then our legal team is Frank Turner Jr. I just want to take a second before we really dive into the IDA update and really commend and say a big thank you to our partners. You guys, absolutely. Thank you for continuing the effort of economic development in Newton County. Thank you for the progression and this transition. I cannot say thank you enough, and I didn't know they would be here tonight, but to your HR team. Your HR team did outstanding work. Amanda and Shoemaker and Pamela Maxwell, Beth Cato, absolutely phenomenal, and really made Dave and I in the progression seamless, made us feel like we're a part of the team and a home. And I knew there was a time that we didn't feel like we were going to have a home. And so I just can't thank them enough for working with them. And I want to thank Ms. Martin and working with Frank and the team here to make sure that we're all doing this properly and legally. And so I want to thank you all for that and your appropriation. Also want to reference and thank Mike Hopkins and the Newton County Water and Sewage Authority. Mike and their team came in with an appropriation as well to help fund our office. And I think that was a big commitment on their part. And again, the vitality of economic development for Newton County's future. So again, we're really supportive of them, and just want to start by saying a big thank you. So from an economic overview, details of where we are. From a population number, 2019, and Newton County ended out a little over 111,000 people. That equates to a little under 30,000 jobs that are located here in Newton County. The interesting part about this is that we're on a growth projection. These numbers are talk about a 5% growth average, and we look for the next 5 years to continue that growth average to 5, almost to 7%, is that we can see in the next 5 years. Our median household income is something you all should be very proud about. Our median household income, they are usually a year or so behind, so we'll get 2019 numbers coming up very soon. But this reference is in 2018, and we're actually at a little over $53,000 for our median household income. I know many of you sitting in this horseshoe remember the days that it was half of that. Yeah. And so I think you all should be pleasantly pleased to see that the growth, and truly when we do economic development, it is on jobs and job wages. That is a very important part of when we make commitments or companies that we bring in. We heavily look at the wages and what that will mean to our local economy. I think you all are familiar with the unemployment rate. And when you look at the unemployment rate here starting in 2012, and again, many of you in this horseshoe remember the 2012 days, that our unemployment rate was at 13%, to where we ended out 2019 at 3%. So it was certainly a strong progression. I've been fortunate enough to be with you through that 7-year period, and so has Dave, and again through this transition, and that equates to right about 10,000 jobs that were acquired, obtained, and for our people getting to work. And so again, that's something to be very commendable about for yourselves and what you've done in leadership in this community. And so congratulations. So one of the things I'm sure you're asking is, well, that's great, Sarah, but where are we at COVID numbers? You know, where are we looking at? So here's the numbers right now. We hit a spike in April at 12.5%, but we are on the downward path in June. We're actually at about 8.4%. What you're looking at is an influx of jobs that's a little over about 1,400 to 1,500 jobs month over month that are acquired and obtained. The great news is, and I will share with you shortly, is that we have had a lot of our facilities, manufacturers, and businesses grow, expand, and be able to start new companies during this time. And again, that's true to the fact of how we are business friendly. We're motivating, and also, too, we want companies to come in, and we want people to get back to work. So Newton County's resiliency has been astounding during this time period of COVID. One of the things that's interesting, and we go back to the median household income, is if you look at the numbers in this chart, in the progression that it goes upward of where we are in 2012, when we were at 13%, our median household income numbers were, again, half of that. And where we are at 3%, you see it's upward and rising over 55. So again, jobs mean money. Money coming back into our economy means a happy Newton County. And I think that's something to be attesting, again, to the fact of how many jobs we're adding to the community, but also at the level of jobs that we're adding and how that reverts back. I want to share with you just this slide that we look into about our workforce and who and where they're living. And I think this goes back to about median household incomes and people that are located here. We actually interviewed all the companies on the right-hand side and said, give us the zip codes of where your people live, where your workers are living. This represents a little over 2,300 employees. Brian, if you can help me out on that mouse there. The dot there above Brian, go up, nope, the dark other one, along I-20, middle dot there. That's Newton County. So we have a bright red dot that a great number of people live in Newton County. If you go to the left and look at Atlanta, look at how many people in that heat map actually live in Atlanta and commute in this direction. And so from that, as they are coming eastbound and they are driving in, that's wear and tear on our roads. That's wear and tear of our community. That's also tax dollars that we're losing because they might not be eating dinner here. They might not be shopping here. They're commuting back in. And that's something we want to make sure the jobs are here, that the people live here to do that. Also, that's interesting. Just look, we have people commuting from South Carolina. We have people commuting from Augusta, Warner Robins. That's a significant haul to come into jobs here, which is also a testament, again, that we have incredible jobs that people will travel in this direction to come this way. So who do we go after? Who do we look at from an IDA? We have 4 targeted industries that we feel like fit in Newton County in no particular order, but biopharma, high tech, that is your Takeda's, BD, Facebook, other kind of technology companies. We have a call center, Pure Talk, same conversation in that. Advanced manufacturing, been our bread and butter in Newton County for many years. That's General Mills, Michelin, Nishimbo, Sherwin-Williams. Film, TV, music, and gaming. Don't have to say a lot there, but I think you know who we are and what we represent in film. And then lastly, and again, in no particular order, but the commercial, corporate headquarters, and corporate solutions that we could drive into the community. So when we go after companies, these are the targets that we're looking for, and again, that wage that we're going after. If you aren't aware of this, but we took the Forbes Global 2000 number, we actually have 8 companies here locally that are in that list. And that's a huge win for us. Not many places, unless you're in a metro area, can state that we're in the Forbes Global 2000. And when you see some of the ones that are even within the Forbes 500, it's a significant number. 7 out of the 8 are within that. And so as we go forward, we are very proud of some of the announcements that we've had locally. And many of these you have seen, either our governor has announced or we have announced locally. Mitex Polymers. It's a new Japanese company that has come in to the community and taken an existing building. Takeda obviously has done their work with COVID-19. Facebook. FiberVision. FiberVision is one that will come out pretty soon and discuss that a 52-year-old facility is actually adding in investment and bringing in new jobs. A lot of times you see businesses like that are shuttering their doors. And again, it's a testament to the long-term retention and growth and the sustainability of Newton County and our company. General Mills, this is one that just announced this week or last week. We are very excited about more cereal to our community. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is here. If you have not gone online, please go online and sign up. You can get a free box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And so we're excited that we will see and smell more Cinnamon Toast Crunch in our neighborhood. And so we're excited. This is one of their largest capital projects in North America. This announcement was over $50 million and adding another 40 jobs. And they're one of the highest paid manufacturers in our community. Three Ring Studios has now formed a partnership with Cinelease. Cinelease Studios is now the corporate broker. This is an aerial shot actually from last week to show the 3 buildings, the sound stages, as well as the mill space, and you can see they're going in further progression. 3 new hotels have come during the time of COVID as well, too. Looking at the Covington Town Center, you see a Home to Go. There will be a Courtyard Marriott, a Residence Inn, and we actually have the latest one. There'll be a Spring Hill Suites that'll be coming to town too. So additional hotel stays will help out certainly the movie industry, but also our industry partners as well. Lidl. Again, this is a project that was on the west side of town of the access road, right on the Newton-Rockdale line, $100 million. This is what a facility will look like. This is one of their current facilities in Virginia. But to give you an idea at this moment here, there's a layout of their plans as well as just an aerial shot of where they will go. Just want to take a moment to say thank you to Ms. Judy Johnson and the team and the fire chief and what they've done to help make this progression very easily for a new company coming to the community. So overall, economic development sites, just from one end of the county to the other. We stretch all the way of Newton County and as that goes forward. 2015, to give you an idea, at that time we had 62 available buildings to market. Today, I have 1. And actually, as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, I might have less than that. So again, we are seeing the attraction. We're seeing the growth to come in. You'll see new spec buildings that will come in as well, too. Again, aerial shots of Covington Town Center. Put some pieces here of aerial shots of Cinelease Studios. I think you're all familiar with our eastern portion sites that we continue doing virtual visits on. This is a visit that we had earlier this year. Helicopters, a mowed pad, and again, just producing and working with Newton County. Workforce development is a critical factor in Newton County, and I think it's a critical factor in Georgia, as we hear from our commissioner. Dr. Clerk was here earlier talking about our apprenticeship industrial maintenance. This was from this past Saturday. We actually had companies do a meet and greet with all the apprentices. That's Nishimbo, Michelin, SRG Global that were here talking to our apprentices that are getting ready to go. Big news on this date, October the 9th, new virtual job fair. Please list it out. Please share with your constituents and people that the virtual job fair is coming again. Had a great showing last time, but we have even more jobs this time. And so for that, I'm finished. I know that was a long-winded. Sorry,
ma'am.
Chairman.
Thank you.
But if there are any questions, I know Chairman Sims and I would be happy to answer. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. We greatly appreciate what you do and what you're doing for our community. I would take questions tonight, but it's 7:30, and it's time for our zoning, so we got to go directly into zoning. Again, thank you so much for what you guys are doing tonight. Ms. Judy, thank you. Yeah, she's here.
Good evening, Commissioners. This evening, we have just two cases before you tonight. Our first request is for a future land use map amendment. The property is located in District 1 at 5907 Highway 212, and it is a request to take the current future land use map. It's a request to take 2.49 acres of a 6.68 acre tract and ask for a future land use map amendment change. The request is to designate a future land use from residential to commercial on 2.49 acres of the existing tract of a 6.6 acres in order to seek a rezoning to establish a convenience store. The character area and policies. Staff's analysis. Pursuant to the Newton County 2038 Comprehensive Plan, Community Agenda, the project site is located in the following character area and is correlated with the following appropriate land uses and policies. The character area is Oak Hill, which is a sense of community forged through high-quality education, local jobs, better quality homes, aesthetic standards, and family-oriented activity centers. Appropriate land uses are agriculture, residential, office institutional, commercial, parks and recreation, and conservation. Here is an aerial view of the property. The property is at the south intersection of Highway 212 where Bethany Road and Butler Bridge intersect. The next is our zoning map. The current property is zoned AR, agricultural residential, and this is our future land use map amendment. The future land use on this property is residential, so that means any zoning must meet a residential zoning, so they're requesting again to take 2.49 acres of this tract, and they're requesting to amend the future land use only tonight to commercial. Here's a survey of the property showing the 2.49 acres in the overall tract. Here is a concept plan, and again, we're not voting necessarily for a concept plan this evening. What we're voting on is whether or not to amend our future land use map amendment. Conclusion. Given the location of the property along a given the location of a property being a corner lot at a well-traveled intersection with a traffic signal, which limits the property's use as currently zoned, staff is of the opinion that the future land use amendment may be appropriate for the area. As a note, future land use map amendments do not have conditions of zoning. Should the flume be approved and a rezoning petition be filed to move forward with commercial development, the rezoning petition would be eligible for conditions of zoning to to mitigate any impact the zoning and/or use may have on adjoining and adjacent properties. And that concludes the staff's portion of the staff report, and I can answer any questions if you should have.
I think we're gonna open up for a public hearing, and then we'll bring you back.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. It is approximately 7:35. At this time, we're gonna allow the applicant and those that wanna speak in favor to come at this time. Please, you have 10 minutes to do so. Please state your name, your address for the record, please, the applicant and those that are in favor.
My name's John Nix. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, a small family-owned company that's owned this property for 15 years. As Ms. Johnson stated, this is a future land use map amendment only. We're very familiar, I've studied your zoning ordinance, and more importantly, the comprehensive land use plan that y'all adopted in 2018. And the use that we're proposing for this site lines up explicitly with the terms of that land use comprehensive plan. The character area of Oak Hill is a sense of community, an aesthetic standard. The appropriate uses include institutional, include commercial, include office, as well as the residential. You can see from this particular slide, which is a colored version of what was presented by Ms. Johnson. Well, that one, thanks. And you see that, again, stressing that we're only asking for 2.49 acres to be considered with this amendment. The purpose of that restriction is to honor the aesthetic and the character area of Oak Hill. And you can see how that piece of property then is situated toward the very front, toward the intersection that, as y'all know, in 2014, a stoplight, a traffic signal was added there because of the traffic flow. The 249 acres now is orientated toward the intersection itself. Typically, convenience stores want to face a highway like 212 front, so it's perpendicular to the road. The company that's under contract for this property is another small family-held company, a daughter, son, and their father who thought he was retired until they brought him back to do convenience stores again. And what they do is develop very well done, thought out convenience stores. And we've convinced them that this needs to be orientated toward that intersection. And you see what that does, that creates that green space in front of the store, which again is very not typical of highway commercial. We realize that if this land use map amendment is granted, that we have to come back and ask for a rezoning. The rezoning that we're going to be asking for, if that happens, is going to be neighborhood commercial, not your highway commercial. And neighborhood commercial, I know y'all are familiar with it, tends to be appropriate for the neighborhood instead of a highway situation, and that's why we're trying to orientate the property the way it is and maintain that green space. On the next slide, you're going to see a photo from the ground looking back at the site from the intersection, and you see that row of trees to the right that actually goes along the property on 212 as well as Butler Bridge. We've got the person that's thinking about buying this property to commit to maintain that tree line along, excuse me, Butler Bridge. Even though we're live, y'all, I am not used to talking in a mask. I feel like I'm getting ready to, I don't know, but. So, just north of this intersection, as y'all know, is the elementary school, is Denny Dobbs Park, is a fire station. We think by orienting the property this way, not only do we tie into Oak Hill's characteristics, but also the green space that's created by the park. It takes a lot of effort by community to establish an effective comprehensive plan. A lot of communities don't do it. You should be very honored and pleased with the people that put all that work in back in 2018 to achieve that did. But when you adopt a comprehensive plan, you should follow it. And our argument to y'all tonight is that this proposed use, this amendment to the land use map, dovetails into that plan. And that plan anticipated that this area, this zoning, would have commercial use, and it anticipated neighborhood commercial, because it's clear from your zoning table that a neighborhood commercial is a conditional use in this area. So we're asking for something that's consistent with what you have planned, and we think we have a product, and we know we have to bring it back if y'all go with the amendment to the map. But we think we have a product that will fit and be very different from the traditional convenience store that you see going south or north of this intersection. I'd like to reserve the rest of my time.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone else want to speak in favor? So do you want to speak now, or do you want to come back and rebuttal if somebody opposed?
Is anybody in opposition?
I don't know.
Oh, I was getting out of the way.
I'm saying, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, I'll
You-
take the rest of, I'm not going to take the rest of my time. If
You
there's
are?
no- Pardon?
You are? You want to take the rest of your time now?
No, yeah, if,
Okay, go ahead.
it's my only option, isn't it, Chairman?
No, sir.
Oh, I thought he already asked for opposition.
No.
Oh, in favor.
Yeah.
I think the mask is covering my ears too. I apologize.
So you want to save your time? Anyone else want to speak in favor tonight? Anyone else want to speak in favor tonight? Thank you. That portion is closed. Now we're going to open it up for those who want to oppose tonight. You also have 10 minutes to do so. If you would, please come and state your name and your address for the record, please. Anyone wants to oppose? You want to oppose, ma'am? You may come. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carolyn Nelson. I live on Butler Bridge. I've lived there almost 40 years. Just one thing, there's no one that's really been aware of this. The signs are this tall, one sign this tall, all grass above it this high. No sign on 212. I've talked to people, they have no clue what the sign is. I feel like it should be displayed, a sign so people can see what it is. Because I've talked to neighbors, they had no clue. They just thought that was buy houses, rent, sell, whatever. And as far as I remember, we've always, in all of our zonings, you had to have it displayed so everybody could at least see what it was about. And there are none. Nothing on 212. I went there tonight. I took my little picture of the one on Butler Bridge, which is probably about halfway of the property. But as I said, since my road doesn't get mowed, very seldom, the grass is way above the sign, and none of the people are aware of it. And there's a lot of houses on that road. And at this time, I just think it should be postponed or something, so at least people of our community know what's going on, because we don't know. It just happens I try to stay up on it. And I saw them little ribbons, so I knew, okay, it's time to look at it. But people that have moved here from other places, they don't realize those little ribbons mean development, and it's not always good. So I would just like for everybody to look at it and let us, at least, people be notified about it. I mean, they may be for it, but I feel like our community has a right to know about it. Okay? That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else want to oppose tonight? Anyone else want to oppose tonight? That portion of our public comments is closed. Are we going to open it back up for the remainder of the 3 minutes and 27 seconds, sir? You may finish your time.
Could you put up the last slide I had? So, in closing, I just want to stress to you this is an amendment request for the zoning map. I truly believe that this is consistent with your comprehensive plan. And just to give you an idea of, this is one rendering of potentially what the store would look like. Remember, this is conceptual, and I think to scale it's a little bigger than what's allowed in neighborhood commercial. So it wouldn't be that large, because you're limited to 5,000 square feet under the conditions of your zoning ordinance. But these folks build very quality stores with really nice fronts and good materials because they own them, they keep them, and they lease them out to their user for the store operation. And that's really all I have. I think I made my points at the beginning, and I won't take your time unnecessarily. Thank you for your attention. It's always good to be here.
Thank you, sir. That portion of our public comments is closed. Ms. Judy, if you would please come back up just in case the commissioners have any questions, please. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Edwards.
So, Judy, I want to make sure this is not an error on my agenda here. The Planning Commission recommended denial by a vote of 4-0.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I was going to go down that same path. Can you tell us why they denied it?
You got this.
No, ma'am, I was not present at that meeting. I was not well that evening, so I was not a portion of that meeting. I can't say as to why they chose to deny.
Well, there must have been a strong reason if they voted 4-0. It'd be nice to know what that was.
Yes, ma'am. I do know there was no public opposition.
Well, that's even more confusing than why they voted 4-0. I mean, I think it'd be nice for us to have that information. I know you weren't there, so I'm
Yes,
not trying to shoot the messenger here.
I understand.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? I think this is District 2, I think. Commissioner Mason. Is it
It's
District 1?
District 1,
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry. Commissioner Edwards. What's your pleasure, sir? I mean, you need to make it in the form of a motion. You don't want to make a motion? Okay. I seek a motion, please. I'm gonna take a quick recess. Give me about a minute, please, and we'll stand in recess. Thank you, guys. We're back in our regular meeting. I'm going to call for a motion again. Commissioners, I seek a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This time I'd like to make a motion that we turn down case number FLU 20-000001.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Mason that we not approve this tonight. Any discussion? Commissioner Schultz.
So I think it's really difficult for us to make a decision when we don't know the reason of why there was there was obviously a very strong denial. So I would hope that for the future, when we bring forth something like this, because I certainly don't want to overturn what the intent of the Planning Commission was, because obviously they had a very strong perspective on this. So I'm encouraging you as the development services to make sure that we know what that reason was when we've got a 4-0 denial in the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you. First of all, forgive me, I had to go out back for a minute. But could you kind of frame a little bit of speak? The planning commission voted how?
They voted 4-0 for denial of the future land use.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to leave the rest of the commissioners guessing as to why I made the motion to turn this down. The feedback I received from the District 1 residents of that area was it was undesirable to them. So, and District 1 is one side of the road, District 2 is the other side of the road. And Commissioner Mason may be able to speak to that. But the residents from District 1 that reached out to me were not in favor of this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll definitely echo what Commissioner Edwards said. Of course, the residents of the District 2 side, they just felt like it wasn't desirable for them as well. And so when we looked at, the Planning Commission had a denial of 4-0, and then the citizens in that area didn't feel like it was desirable for the area. I think that was our reasoning for being able to deny this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? I'm calling for the vote. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you, guys. Ms. Judy.
Yes, sir. The last item we have for you this evening is a resolution. This is R091520, a resolution regarding the adoption of the FY19 CIE and short-term work program, community. Because we collect impact fees, we're required yearly to update our CIE and our short-term work program. This is the final step. The public hearing was held on June 2nd, 2020 by the Board of Commissioners, where you reviewed the attached document on the resolution and gave permission for us to transmit this to DCA. On July 15th of 2020, DCA approved our update, and once the resolution is approved, the final step is to have this step tonight, which is the adoption resolution. And once we do the adoption resolution, we will send this back to DCA within 7 business days, and we will have met the mandated requirements of the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act. The department requests for adoption of the resolution. And again, the resolution is a 1-page resolution, which is just requesting permission for the board to adopt the approved plan that we transmitted to DCA, so it keeps us in line with our local qualified government status.
Thank you. So guys, we don't have to have a public hearing on this.
No, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Judy? Any questions? You sure can. It's time.
So, am I recognized?
Commissioner Schultz.
So this is the last time I'm going to vote on this short-term work plan. And I'd like for you all to look at the items that are Brown Bridge Road from Crowell Road to 162 and Crowell Road from Brown Bridge to I-20, where the project completion date is slated for 2028. That means if those are slated for 2028, we need to make sure that they are in our short-term work plans for now, and we don't need to kick that can down the road and get started on those. Because if we're going to complete them by those dates, we need to have a funding source you can see that one of them is 18 million, the other one, our portion is 2 million. But we all know how long it takes to get widened roads, and I just encourage you to not forget about those roads. They need to be done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? I seek a motion, please. Commissioner Schultz.
I move for approval of the short-term work plan 2019 to 2023.
Can I get a second, please? It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Edwards. Any more discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Judy. Next on the agenda is the county manager's report. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few slides here. We had, over the last month, we had 13 new hires and 9 separations. Our total employee count is up to 720. We've got the, pardon me, next slide, please. The next slide indicates our permitting activity. We are continuing to have good activity on the commercial side, as well as with our primary residential permits are continuing to be ahead of last year. And you can see the total dollar value there for the month of at $21,800,000 for the residential, and $1,540,000 on the commercial side. Next slide, please. Work orders by district, you can see those there as we've had those spread out, and the LMIG resurfacing projects that were done during the month of August, and we are continuing to work towards completing all of those. All of the roads that are on our current 2020 LMIG list. 2011 SPLOST, we worked on Johnson Road. Other projects that we've had, a pipe replacement on Starsville Road, I believe that was a 36-inch pipe. Replacement at Spring Lake Drive. And then we've continued to do tree removal and sidewalk repair in Riverwalk Farms. If you've been down there, you're aware that the street trees that were planted have done wreaked quite a bit of havoc on the sidewalks, and we've replaced a little over 300 linear feet of sidewalk in there. So that's been progressing nicely. Also, this is the COVID-19 snapshot for Newton County. Actually, this also includes Gwinnett and Rockdale, since we are part of that health system, the East Metro Health System. Newton County has had 2,598 total cases and have unfortunately had a total of 76 deaths. However, I would bring your attention to a couple of things that I've picked out here that are on the positive side. One is on page 3, our 7-day positivity percentage is down below 10% now. We're at 9.4%. And also, which is a move in a positive direction. And also, on the final page of this report, you'll see the age distribution, which at this point currently our distribution is mostly those individuals who are in the 35 to 49 year-old bracket. But you can see the breakdown by race and by age and so forth. This data is available on the Gwinnett Newton Rockdale Health Department site, and it's also available on our website. And a few things that I wanted to also mention to you from our departments. Well, starting with the Animal Services Department, as you know, the building is still under construction. But even though we have officially opened yet, we've had a little over 400 people visiting the Animal Services building, and during the past month, we adopted out about 72 animals. We are also in the process, our building services is in the process of obtaining temperature sensors that will be placed at each of the buildings. And these are automatic sensors so that when people walk through, they'll get their temperature taken, as opposed to having to be taken individually by one of the of our deputies, and also for our employees as they check into work each day, so that we know that they're not running a fever. The elections office continues to be busy as they continue to prepare for the upcoming election, and currently we have 77,000 active voters in the county, with the numbers of mail-in applications continuing to come into the office. So it continues to look like it'll be a very, very large turnout and a very busy election day this year. Finance is continuing to prepare for the our audit and our fiscal year end. We did and were able to turn in all of the expenses for the CARES Act Phase 1 funding, which is making, which allows us to be eligible for the Phase 2 funding that we understand the state will be forwarding. We just have not had an indication of what that amount would be or when that would be, but we are eligible. Fire Services will begin their new recruit hiring program for stations to man stations 2 and 4, so that will begin shortly. GIS has been working very closely with Laura Bertram, and would like to recognize Laura for all of her work, the people at Family Connections for all of their hard work on the census. Census, as you know, is very important to us because this is one of the ways that determines the amount of federal dollars we get for certain programs in the county. But the staff as well has done quite a bit of work to help in that effort, and has most recently been placed. Some of you picked up signs to put in your neighborhoods and at your churches, and they've been doing that as well, encouraging people. And we encourage everybody who's here tonight who has not filled out their census forms to please do so, so that we get as many people in the county counted as possible. IT has been collaborating with Judge Zahn and has been having conversations with several vendors to begin working a plan to renovate the AV equipment is currently in courtrooms 1 through 3. We are in the process of upgrading those courtrooms to the same capacity and capabilities that are in courtroom 4. And this is in order to bring the most up-to-date equipment and to make it easier, particularly during this time of the emergency, for the judiciary to conduct court, and to also in the future bring the courts out to the people. So, and we are also continuing to work on our network security issues. Quite a bit of training. Our continual training has dropped our failure rate, if you will, of the test that we conduct continuously with our employees for phishing and so forth, and to raising their awareness of cyber threats. We also wanted to mention that the FFA checkpoint that was going to be constructed at the FFA Road on the way into the FFA camp, we have issued a notice to proceed on that project, so we'll we have that all worked out now. Also, the design for the roundabout at Jack Neely and Kirkland Road is at 90% now. We were recently at 80. The design for Harold Dobbs and Crowell Road intersections at 35% complete. The senior services have received a check from Pizzazz Travelers Club, which is a travel service that they use to plan a lot of their trips for. But they have received a donation of $4,000 to be used for their furniture and appliances and so forth. And also, over the course of the last several months, the Newton County Senior Services, Inc., which is the nonprofit arm and advisory group to the Senior Services Department, has raised over $20,000 from their giving tree, and that money will be used to purchase furniture and additional equipment that will be needed once the new remodeled center opens. And that is all I have for tonight, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I guess it was Friday, maybe, or one day last week. I talked with Ms. Bertram about the number of participants that have completed the census, and she indicated that it was in the 60 to 64% range. So my question is, if we don't get a larger percentage of completions, what does that do in terms of our funding for various grants?
Well, the funding could be reduced. I think it would have to depend on where we are, what the last census, the numbers from the last census, and where we were comparing the last census to this census in terms of percentages of the count. So we would have to do an analysis on that. But presumably, if we did not get a full count, then there would be less federal dollars available for particularly some of the social programs.
So I know back in 2012, when we got the results from the 2010 census, we all presumed that we were well over 100,000, and then when the census numbers came back, we were under 100,000, and it substantially impacted what types of grant funding we received. So I just, I don't know how we can impart to our citizens how crucial it is for the economic, it means more services are available, more funding is available, and how we can get that across to those citizens who have not completed the census. I did mine in April, and I imagine the rest of us on this board probably did ours in April too. So how do we get that? How do we, are there pockets that we need to identify that we really need to focus on?
Actually, the areas that were difficult to count, or where the count would have been, the voluntary count would have been low, had actually been previously identified. The challenge has been with this census has obviously been the COVID-19. The Census Bureau has, the numbers of people who would be available to do the door knocking now are very, very limited. So that has created a real problem. But the areas where there was believed to be, where they were, where the count would have been under, were identified back before the census was ever started. They had already identified those tracts where it was believed there were a lot of particularly Latino or individuals who have been historically undercounted, and certain other minority populations that have been historically undercounted, that those tracks were identified for extra attention in the way of getting out pamphlets and trying to identify those folks and trying to give them the extra signage and things like that. And of course, there's been a television and radio and so forth and extra advertising efforts to try to get those people who have not been counted to voluntarily fill out the forms. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason and then Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to the conversation, I think for those who may know, I've actually been utilizing my social media platform to have conversations about various subject matters within the county. And I actually just did a community conversation last night with the program director of Fair Count. So if anyone wants to actually go to my social media page, they can actually see a lot of these questions were answered through that conversation. And Fair Count has basically partnered with the Census Bureau to kind of really help get the word out so that we can increase our count. In some areas, we are over 70%, and in some areas, we're over 60%. So actually, we are ahead of the state level with the census right now. I do know that initially, it was extended to October the 31st, but then it was changed to September the 30th. Well, very soon, there's going to be an injunction filed to kind of help move it back to October 31st. So if we're able to move it back to October 31st versus September the 30th, that's going to help us as a county really be able to reach more people. There will be numerators that are knocking on the doors. We'll go out September the 24th through the 26th. So they are going to be going out to those hard to count or hard to reach individuals. So they're going to be knocking on doors. And they've already put together groups where they're basically going to, in those 3 days, they will touch all 159 counties in Georgia, all within those 3 days. So hopefully if we can get it moved from September the 30th back to October the 31st, that's going to give us some more time. I'm a firm believer that Newton County can really reach 80% or above. We just need that additional time because COVID-19 did halt a lot of the work from the beginning in April. And so we're working very, very diligently now. Newton Family Connection, Laura Bertram, Miss Molly, they've done a phenomenal job with targeting those areas in Newton County that we've been having a challenge with reaching. As a matter of fact, I personally went to her and actually got signs from her and put them out throughout District 2. So if, I would suggest to my other commissioners as well, please pick up some signs. Put them out in your area, in your district, so that, and what I did is when I talked to Miss Laura and Molly, I asked them specifically because in District 2, we have some areas that are above 60, 62, 63, and then some are like 72, I think if I can remember, 71, 72%. And so the ones that were in the 60% in District 2, those are the areas that I targeted and I put out the signs. So I think the more we can get the word out, the better it will be. But I think if we can really get it extended until October 31st, that'll give us some additional time to really reach that 80% target. So hopefully that helps.
Thank
you,
sir.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've been trying to answer that question of getting a bigger turnout as far as the census for a few years. I think the one last year. And so I occasionally ask people, some of my Latino brothers and sisters, and naturally my Afro-American brothers and sisters too as well, is why is it that you don't want to do the census? And I tell you what the majority of them told me. They said, you never see anything. They said, if you look for a grant, said by the time the grant comes, all the money's gone. But yet you want me to go out and what they view as personal information, give out the personal information, and all this money comes, you never do see anything, you don't see any improvements in the community. You see we still are a little above or close to the property rate, even though you hear a whole lot of different stuff. But I think until you can sell them, and I'm similar to Commissioner Schultz, I feel mine's out because, I want to make sure that I be counted. But until you can show the peoples, especially the minorities, and where it's going to help them, I think it's probably going to be a little bit lower each and every time we have a census. And I'm just going to close with this. One lady came to my house, and we was just out talking, my wife and a few kids. And this has nothing to do with the census, but a little girl, she had a beautiful little daughter, and she was like in the grade school, and she had another daughter who was younger. And so I said, what school you going to? And she said, well, we know we're not going to school now. I said, we are doing it at home. And so I said, well, what you think about the Chromebook? She said, we don't have one. And I said, what? I said, I thought the school system gave everybody a Chromebook. She said, no. So they told us, don't worry about it. Said, what we're going to do, what they're going to do is it won't be held to account against them. And the first thing that hit me was that this child is going to be further behind. Going to be further behind. So until we have programs that are going to actually go out and show some improvements in the community, catch up the children who are being left behind, people who are trying to get started with business, get a grant or something, I think HEPA just not even going to worry about it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I forgot to add this one thing. When I did the one-on-one discussion conversation with the program director last night, that's kind of one of the things that we talked about, Commissioner Henderson. And I think one of the reasons why, and he stated that the money's run out fast, is because people aren't going out and they are not filling out that census. And so when they don't fill out that census, that decreases the amount of federal funding that we get within our community. Originally, it was $2,300 per person. It has now increased to $3,600 per person. So every single citizen, if we have over 100,000 citizens, 110, 111,000 citizens, if, for example, if we only have 70% of those, which I think in 2010, I believe it was like around 70 or so percent that fill that out, well, that remaining 20+%, we didn't get that federal funding. So now we're having to do roads and projects and, try to improve our school system off of the dollars that we received, but we didn't receive enough. We only received enough federal funding to cover 70% when we have 100% that we need to take care of. And so I think that's why we want to really encourage our citizens to go out. The more that they fill out their census, the more we can get to fill out the census, the more federal dollars we can get. And when you look at that's $3,600 a year per person. That's $36,000 that we lose just from one person not filling out that census. So just think, if we have 30% that doesn't fill it out, that's $36,000 per individual over that 10-year term. So I think we want to encourage our citizens to go out and fill it out for the reason so that we can get the funding that we need to be able to have those programs, to do roads, to better our education, our school system, because it really helps a lot of different areas. But if they say, well, we're not going to fill it out, then that's less funding that we actually get. So I think we just want to get the message out to fill out the census. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kerr, anything else? Mr. Kerr, anything else? Anything else? That's it, okay. Thank you, sir. That do it for the county manager report. Next on the agenda is item number 7, old business. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to continue this, to table this until we get information from the state, specific information from the state on the dollar amount that we'll be receiving and on what the criteria will be for eligible expenses. So I think we just need to take it off of the and just continue it until a later date. And as soon as we get that information, we'll put it back on the agenda then.
Thank you, sir. I seek a motion, please. Commissioner Schultz.
So, Lloyd, may I just be clear that you do not want to specify a date when you put this back on?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
So then I would just table the Coronavirus Relief Fund Administration Agreement until a later date.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Edwards that we table this indefinitely. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. It's tabled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Passed 5-0. Next is our consent agenda. Commissioners, you had an opportunity to look at the consent agenda. I seek a motion, please.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is item number 9. Discussion, consideration to place the cemetery at Gaithers at Murder Creek Farms on the National Registry of the Historic Cemeteries. Guys, I want to briefly give you a quick update. I wish I could take credit for this, but I really can't because this started back when Keith Ellis was chairman, that he was trying to get this done. So here we are again. We have a cemetery, a slave cemetery, here in our community down at Gaithers, that has, that's, hasn't had any kind of attention given to it. It's overgrown, and I reached back out to Dr. Alvarado to see if she could help us with this issue, and so she's here tonight to explain what she could help us do to get some assistance doing that. Ma'am, if you would, please come. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you all for having me here.
Thank you.
I have to apologize in advance if I get a little emotional. This is something that's been very dear to me that I've wanted to do for a while. Again, my name is Kershik Sims Alvarado. I'm a professor at Morehouse College within the Africana Studies Department, and I specialize in slavery, Reconstruction, and the Civil Rights Movement. But I'm also the CEO of a nonprofit called Preserve Black Atlanta. And for the past 20 years, I have dedicated my professional life, my education, to studying the African American experience, but also presenting it in various ways to the public. And so one of the things I've been very fortunate to do, and I'm going to say fortunate again, because sometimes I'm not even sure if what I'm doing is, the work that I'm doing is because of my talent, because of the training that I received. Is it luck, or is it something spiritual? Are the ancestors approaching me about telling their stories? So I've been very fortunate to work with a number of organizations, Time Magazine, the National Park Service and Foundation. Right now, I'm actually working to document the interviews of individuals who had a personal connection with Dr. and Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And so the second home of Dr. King in Atlanta is actually being preserved. And so I'm part of that process. I've been fortunate to have the experience of placing a number of properties on the National Register. And this property really spoke to me. I was actually introduced to it by the former chairman, Keith Ellis. And he learned about my work, and he asked me to come out to the woods. And I was like, please don't kill me. You know, women hear the woods, and we're like, oh, God. But he's a really good one. He's a wonderful person. He has a great relationship with my husband. He does good work. And he brought me to the Gaither plantation. And we went out into the woods together, and the only thing that served as a marker was a tree on the ground. And so we walked deep into the woods, and he said, there's a slave cemetery out here. And the only thing that served as the markers were rocks. Big rocks, little rocks. And if you just stop, you can actually see where there are indentations of the ground, of where individuals have returned to the earth. And you can see that the little rocks represented babies, and the big boulders represented an elder. And so my husband and I, we just went out to the woods just recently, and he said, where is it? I said, I don't know. I told Mr. Ellis that if a second tree falls, I'm lost. So we went out to the woods, and there were at least about 10 trees on the ground. So I'm like, okay, where are they? So I just stood still again, and slowly your eyes will refocus, and you will see the bodies that have returned to the earth. And it was so beautiful and so peaceful. There were 2 deer in the cemetery. You see muscadine trees. There was some type of fruit tree like crab apples or something. And one indication of a slave cemetery is these little purple flowers. And I just laughed out loud because, you know, you read these things, but then to actually see it. And so these flowers, these little purple flowers, they bloom every year. And 150 years later, after someone did this, you still see it. So the dead is never really the dead. And there's all these tangible reminders to allow us to understand that these individuals are still with us. So how do we honor them? And so this site is so special to me, and I hope you understand what you have, because this is the opportunity to lead the nation in using history for people to receive some type of reconciliation or reciprocity. And so we can do this with the deceased. And I always say, how do we use the dead to teach the living? And we can do this. So you have a really historical gem here to have these individuals intact on a historical site. But how do we help these individuals who are deceased receive their humanity? How do we bury them properly? And as we're talking about Black Lives Matter, we need to teach the world that Black lives matter on earth and in the afterlife. And so we can do that. So how do we do it? So there's a number of ways that we can actually do this. And so I reached out to individuals at the Georgia Department of History today, and they shared with me some really quick steps that we can use in order to protect the site. Because anything could happen. A person could come along one day and just decide they're just going to move all the rocks, and then we have no idea where things are. So what we want to do is to preserve, protect, and document the history of more than 150 enslaved individuals on the Gaither property. And the goal is to ultimately nominate this site on the National Register of Historic Places. And the reason why you want to do this is because right now, within this moment, for the next 5 years, there's quite a bit of money that's available to do these types of things. There's money available from $15,000 to receiving $500,000 a year. And in the state of Georgia, there's money set aside right now just specifically for African American cemeteries. So you have this. But you also have dwellings on the property as well, too, that can lead to all sorts of studies as well. So I want to seize the opportunity to be able to do that. So if you look at the document that I provided for you, if you go down to step 1, where it says survey land or perform study of more than 150 persons, the first thing we need to do is to actually show that there are individuals in the ground. So a survey needs to be done. You can actually do this through geo-penetrating radar. And you may actually already have this information. As a matter of fact, with former Chairman Keith Ellis, he actually had someone to survey the property before. I'm not sure where that study is at today, so it needs to be performed. So I was told that the first thing we need to do is to show the concrete proof that there's individuals within the ground. You can do this with the survey. Also, if there are any type of like primary documents with the Gaither plantation, if they kept any type of archival records. And then you want to use this to begin the process of placing these individuals on the National Register for Historic Places. And what you do is that I actually attached a preliminary eligibility for application that can actually be completed by the county. With my nonprofit, I'm proposing that we form a partnership to actually expedite that process. Not every county has a historian on site, so I'm proposing that my nonprofit actually partner with you all to get this done. Once the application is submitted, it takes 60 days in order to get this approved for it to be declared as a historic site, but then it takes 2 full years to actually place it on the National Register. So once you receive that type of status, it opens up the opportunity for you to receive all sorts of funding. But there are individuals who want to give right now, private donors, and people say, what can I do right now within this moment? And so here's an opportunity to be able to do that through our partnership. So as we're going through and I'm saying we right now, so I'm hoping that we can establish a partnership. And what can happen concurrently is that as we're going through the nomination process, the study can actually take place, the study of these individuals, the archival research that can be done. And then if people want to give funding in order to protect the cemetery right now, we can actually do that. And I think that I see a few eyes move. I'm not sure what my time is right now, and I failed to watch the clock. But I want to pause for a second to see if you have any questions that I can answer.
Any questions, guys? Commissioner Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This sounds extremely interesting. I'm very much a history person myself. It seems like there was a project south of Atlanta that got taken over by the CSX Railroad. It eliminated they were going to put in a African American cultural center there. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Okay. Anyway, CSX ended up leasing the property, and that ended up stopping that particular project. Is there something available out there that maybe Gaithers could be used for in some similar fashion or through this?
What I've had in my mind for the past 4 years is that when people look at historic sites and you look at a plantation, people go, oh, what do we use it? And the first thing people say, oh, let's lease it out for weddings, right? And you all have been so creative in being able to have the space used for filming. There is only one slave museum in the entire nation, okay? But what could happen here is for you all to establish the National Center for the Study of Slavery. I think that would be absolutely brilliant. There's nothing like it. And the first time when we start talking about having these type of studies done, people are like, oh, it's taboo. How are people going to feel about it? Never in 150 years, people would have thought that people would go to see a lynching memorial in Montgomery, Alabama. And the Equal Justice Institute, its purpose in Alabama is to talk about convict labor. It's to talk about people who were held as bondsmen and women years ago and even to this day. But it has led to people taking the initiative to look at supporting like a lynching museum. People thought we wouldn't even support like a civil rights museum. They're starting emerging all over the place. And museums are now being used as a place, not for us to see like pretty pictures, but it's an educational institution. It's a social institution. And so we can use these places to teach. And I think that with the property that you have, the actual physical structure of the plantation, of the home, it can serve as the middle ground to bring people together. But you can have all sorts of studies, and you can get national support. People want to support things like this. They just need a place to be able to give it to, an organization to give it to. So I hate that, you know.
Well, one of the best museums I've ever been to is the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, yes.
Very incredible story of African Americans in the United States. I hope you would get with the chairman. I'd like to discuss your vision a little bit more
Yes.
on this. So,
Well, I would love your support. I really would.
1 second. Commissioner Mason, then Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say thank you so much for taking this time to come and bring this project back to Newton County once again. I think it's a phenomenal project. I think it's definitely something that we should strongly consider. I did want to know, do you by any chance know what that total cost would be? And I know you mentioned in some of the steps here where we can get an underrepresented community grant program, $15,000 to $50,000, or the African American Historic Sites national funding, $500,000 annually, up to 5 years with no matching funding requirement. Do you know by any chance how much it would cost to do that? And if so, which one of these, or we would have to apply for it before we can determine how much monies we would get to be able to complete the project?
So the first one you want to do is the underrepresented group, the $15,000 to $50,000, because you need to be placed on the National Register. I actually, before I came down here, I had the State Department for Historic Preservation. They actually looked within their inventory to see if Gaither is already in a historic district, and it is not. I was like, ah. And so they were like, yeah, it's like right on the outskirts of the city. And so it's not. So that's the first thing to be able to do. But you can do that for under $50,000. And within the budget is that you have someone to come out and they give you estimates. It's like building a house, you know, from the ground up. And you go out and you say, this is what these things are going to cost. This is the phase of it. The persons who are coming out would tell you what it is, and you say, I have up to $50,000 to be able to do this. And people can actually negotiate to say, well, I'm willing to adjust my price in order to be able to do this. As a matter of fact, I'm doing this with a group right now in Montgomery. And so you say that this is the budget, this is what we would need in order to get it surveyed and for us to conduct the study to say, this is the history, a general history about who was here. You find out information about the Gaither plantation, like what is the entire number of individuals that were here prior to 1865. So you do all those type of things. You do that in that first step. And then after that, that opens up the possibility for you to apply for funding for, $50,000 to $500,000 a year. And you do the exact same thing. It's that you take it in a multi-step approach. Like, let's say if I was coming in to preserve the courthouse, you have someone to come in and say, okay, what do I need to do in order to secure the building? That's for 1 year. The second year is when you come in and you say, okay, what do I need to do in order to fix the things on the inside? You do that. The third year may be, okay, now we need the windows, the doors, and all of that. So it's a multi-step approach to it. With the cemetery, because there's no physical walls, then you could come in to say, well, let's try to shoot for the sky. Because this is such a historical gem. You can say that we have someone to come in to do the survey. Then the next step would be for someone to come in and to clear the ground, to do archaeological research. It really depends on what it is that you want to do. What is your vision for it? Do you want them to be reburied? That's another thing too. So all these things can open up. It just depends on what is the narrative that you're trying to tell.
And secondly, is there a role that you personally would play in helping us with this particular project?
Yes. So when you apply for grants, there's something called PIs. And this is the person investigator. This is the principal investigator. So this is the person who will oversee writing the grant. I have a personal relationship with them, with the National Parks Foundation. They have begged me, please identify a site. I could have chosen Atlanta, but the ancestors were calling me. So you have to forgive my glasses, keep falling down. So this one is very special because I understand its impact. I know what it can do regarding like healing a community. And during a time, as, we're at a crossroad right now within this country. How do we move forward? And I know that sites can serve as a place for healing and for education. And so how do we do the right thing? And I keep thinking about those individuals that's in the ground who's never had anybody to call their name. Can you imagine dying and nobody never call your name for 150 years to come to visit you? I can't even imagine that, And so how do we humanize them? They're not just people in the ground. They're not spirits. So, what can we learn from them? I think one beautiful example is looking at the African burial ground that was in New York. And there were developers who were going to build over this cemetery. It had been abandoned for years, for over 150 years. Well, when they began to exhume the bodies, one of the things that they saw was that there was an African-American man who had actually fought during the Revolutionary War. How do we know this? Well, the clothes deteriorated, but you could see the buttons right in place. And you look at the buttons, you could see that it was from the Continental Army, that this man gave his life in order to fight for America's independence, and yet people are still not considered as full citizens. But we can learn so much from them. You saw like a mother and a daughter buried together. So, there's just so many stories that can be told, So I want to be able to do that, and I would love to be able to serve as, as the PI on this project.
Great.
But I can't do it alone,
Right.
and I need your support in order to be able to do that.
Right. Well, I'm a firm believer that education is definitely something that changes a nation, it changes a state, it changes a community, and it changes the trajectory of where they go. And so I believe Newton County is an amazing place to live, work, and play. And so I strongly believe that any opportunity that this board has to make anything on a national scale, from a nationally historic site, that's going to just show the great things that we already have, and it's going to just expand it even more for not only just Newton County citizens to see, but for the world to be able to see that Newton County is an amazing place to be. And so I think this is a great opportunity to put this particular community on a national historic scale. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me just share this little fact with you in looking at how history can boost the economy. In the New England area, they have something called creative economies. And I think Boston is probably the best example of that. They created, 60 years ago, Boston created something called the Boston Freedom Trail. And some of you are shaking your head, you know what I'm talking about. It's 13 sites. And they told the story about the American Revolution. It's $1 billion industry. So you have this, people would jump on the highway to come. And during COVID, people were looking for an opportunity to go someplace you don't have to be in a physical building. Prime opportunity. So yes, I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think this is a terrific idea, and I think we need to jump on, as I would say, on the bandwagon and hopefully try to make this happen. But one of the things that I was sitting here and I was thinking about was how do we kind of really put this together? Because we got film, we got filming going on. Then a Gaither's murder farm. We got a nature reserve where you go and hunt the deers on. I think 500 some acres down there. And at certain times of year, I think people be kind of shooting. And then you have some other stuff that are kind of going on down there. And so, and I guess this is for you and the chairman, because the chairman kind of runs the, from what I'm understanding, is some of the day-to-day operations. So how do you navigate and put all that stuff together? I mean, I think, you know, you got slave quarters.
Mm-hmm.
So should that not be a part of the?
That is most definitely is. As a matter of fact, I put that on my note here. As a matter of fact, you look at what
Absolutely.
presented to you, I slid it
Yes.
in, slave dwelling.
I'm very familiar with the property. So I think it's got to be some kind of plan of how do we put this together so I guess all this stuff that's going on at Gaither's plantation can coexist together in somewhat of a little bit of a harmony. Excellent idea. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
If you ask me, Commissioner, I completely agree with you 100%. But I think foremost is that cemetery needs some attention to it. You know, we got trees down that's covering up the graves, and we do. Somebody said that we had a team of people that go around and do cleanups. And Mr. Fred Johnson, he does do cemetery cleanups. But that grave site is a little different from a regular grave site. You got to know what you're doing when you step on those grounds. You picking up little rocks that may be headstones, you know, and you know you don't want to trample on things that you don't really know that you're trampling on. So that's the reason I reached out to Dr. Alvarado here to get her expertise on this. And so I think we need to start at that cemetery. Thank you. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Sims Alvarado, for being here. Gaither's is in my district. I was raised in that area, and I thought there were two slave cemeteries down there. The one I stepped into probably last fall, I guess. It's a I'm not sure this is the right word. It's a transformative experience. It's to stand there and realize you're standing among slaves, and what that represents in your mind, and how that translates back to what you think of that time is just awesome. And I'm willing to work with you in any way I can to do whatever we think is best down there to preserve that place. And I believe there's two slave cemeteries down there.
It very well may be, but I will tell you this: my first couple of weeks, my first, before I even took office, I had the pleasure of going around with Chairman Ellis, and he actually took me there, and I can tell you it's unbelievable. You know, so I don't know if it's two. I do know it's one for sure, but I think it's something that we definitely need to give some attention to.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, and thank you. It's really fascinating what you've said tonight.
Thank you.
So I just want to get some clarity. The proposal that's before us, are we saying that we would, if Chairman Baines wants to begin the process of securing the graves, is that separate from item 1, or do we start with item 1 or do we approve the entire proposal? I guess I just need some clarity on what a motion would be tonight.
Ms. Martin has a resolution, that will get us started. If she, yeah, she'll read it. I am, yeah, please, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I read it, I want to tell you that I have also just really enjoyed hearing from you tonight. You're obviously so passionate about this and so very bright. And so getting the chance to work with you would just be amazing. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So before you tonight, Commissioners, you have resolution number R091520, a resolution of the Newton County Board of Commissioners regarding placement of the cemetery at Gaithers of Myrtle Creek Farm on the National Registry of Historic Cemeteries. Whereas the Constitution of the State of Georgia, approved by the voters of the state in November 1982 and effective July 1, 1983, provides in Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 1 thereof, that the governing authority of the county may adopt clearly reasonable ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. And whereas the Newton County Board of Commissioners recognizes the lives and toils of those interred at the cemetery at Gaithers of Myrtle Creek Farm, and whereas the Newton County Board of Commissioners wishes to preserve the history and legacy of those souls interred at the cemetery at Gaithers of Myrtle Creek Farm, and whereas cemeteries can be listed in the National Register of Historic Places as long as specific criteria are met. And whereas in order for a cemetery to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, it must be significant. The quality of significance in American history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, and culture is present in districts, sites, buildings, structures, and objects that possess integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association, and that meet at least one of the standard National Register's criteria for evaluation. And whereas the 4 criteria for evaluation are as follows, and please note these are ors, not ands. A, associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history. B, associated with the lives of persons significant in our past. C, embody the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, or that represent the work of a master, or that possess high artistic values, or that represent a significant and distinguishable entity whose components may lack individual distinction, or have yielded or may be likely to yield information important in prehistory or history. Whereas pursuing such placement on the National Register of Historic Places requires a specialized skill set provided by consultants, academics, and others familiar in holding expertise in pursuing such designation. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Newton County, Georgia as follows. The chairman of the Newton County Board of Commissioners shall work with a company or individual specializing in pursuing designation of historic cemeteries for placement of the cemetery at Gaithers of Myrtle Creek Farm on the National Registry of Historic Cemeteries. So resolved this 15th day of September 2020.
You ready to make the motion now? Or you got some questions?
No questions.
Okay. You got a question? Commissioner Cowan.
Does it extend to just the cemetery only, or do the whole Gaithers home place site?
This resolution would get us started with the cemetery. Once I understand more what the relationship and partnership will be between the county and the doctor who's here with us tonight, then we'll come back with a contract that clearly lays out what's going to occur with the whole property. The only thing that is before us tonight is the cemetery.
Just
At
the
least that's
cemetery.
what I was asked to prepare. Yes.
Okay.
And we again, Commissioner Cowan, I'm sorry, we have not forgot about what Commissioner Henderson said, that the property, the house, the slave quarters, but we just want to get started. We just want to be able to get started.
So it's just the cemetery?
For right now, just the
Right.
cemetery.
I got you.
And I was just got a text saying there are 2 slave cemeteries out there, so, hey, that's 2, so you're all right. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was so moved as stated by the county attorney.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. It passes 5-0. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to working with you. And again, I want to make sure that I recognize Chairman Ellis, who actually wanted to start this process. So thank you so much.
Give him my blessings
I
and tell
will.
him thank you.
I call him in the morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Yeah. Item number 10, water resources, requesting approval. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James Brown, our Water Resources Director, is here, and I'd like to ask him to come up to handle these
Yes,
next
sir.
two items on the agenda, please.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
The first item on the agenda is to, we're seeking permission to move forward with the construction phase of the Cornish Creek project. That's we presented to you several months ago, actually about a little over a year ago, of all the necessary things that we need to do to get the plant to adequately treat 25 million on a continuous basis. So this is asking for permission to move forward with the contract to move phase 2.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, commissioners? We got 2 out. Commissioner Henderson, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, or whomever, James, the funding come from the water fund?
This is yes, we secured a loan through GFA for 23.289 million, so that'll be funding.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. James, and y'all are ready to get started ASAP?
ASAP.
Okay. Y'all ready? Did I get a motion? I seek a motion, please. Thank you. It's been motioned by Commissioner Cowan and second by Commissioner Henderson. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. It passes 5-0. We'll do item number 11 as well.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
This is an requesting for approval to increase the current loan that we do have through GFA. Requested to increase by 7.9033%, and those additional funds will pay for engineering costs, some site improvements that we need to do before construction can be started, excuse me, and yeah, that's it. Just engineering costs and some site improvements.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Schultz.
So I apologize for stepping out, and you may have covered this while I was gone, but my assumption is that part of the reason that we're increasing this amount of money is because it's taken us a little bit longer to get this project underway. And I just want to, I know the wheels of government turn slowly, but before we have to have any more change orders or additional monies, please light a fire under those individuals to get this project done. Thank you.
They hear.
Hey, they here. Anyone else? Anyone else? I seek a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the increase of the GFA loan from $23,289,000 to $25,876,000 for Cornish Creek facility improvements.
Thank you, sir. It's been motioned by Commissioner Cowan and second by Commissioner Henderson. Any more discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, sir. Next is item number 12, HR and Risk Management. Consideration of travelers' property and casualty insurance policy. Like I see Ms. Pamela Maxwell. Hello, how you doing? Thank y'all for being here tonight.
Doing well, thank you. Good evening. Tonight, we bring before you a request to approve the property and casualty insurance policy renewal. I have brought with me Scott Thomason. He is the Area Senior Vice President with Gallagher, and of course, you all know my boss, Amanda Shoemaker, to assist me with any questions that you all may have in regards to this renewal. You all were provided with a program summary sheet, and in this program summary sheet, it shows you some of the lines of coverage that we have. That includes property, inland marine, auto liability and physical damage, general liability, public officials liability, crime. We also added terrorism policy this year. We increased our cyber liability from the limits of liability from $1 million to $3 million. And we have an umbrella policy. That all falls underneath the property and casualty insurance premium that we have. This amount, of course, is based upon factors which include carrier rates, exposures, and loss experience. We did have a challenging marketplace this year, and we did have increased claim development. So our premium did increase this year. However, we were able to collaborate with Travelers and Gallagher to reduce that impact and kind of minimize it as much as possible. So tonight we recommend the approval of the policy renewal, which includes a premium amount of $714,741. This item was budgeted for in the 2021 fiscal year, and this amount falls within a budgetary projection. So, do y'all have anything to add? Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Any questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the increase year over?
How much was it percentage?
Percent, yeah.
It was 9.
So the overall premium increase was 19.3%. Your exposures, which is your vehicles, your property, your budget, is up 4.3%. And so the net rate change was 15%. And I will add that we just renewed 2 other counties. One of them was at 34%. We had another one earlier this year at 9%. The insurance market conditions are extremely challenging right now.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Commissioner Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems like at the city, we used to have something called boiler machinery. Y'all not exclude that now?
Yes, boiler machinery coverage is included under the property coverage.
On the property casualty?
It's also known as equipment breakdown.
I got you. Okay.
Anyone else? Seek a motion, please. Commissioner Schultz.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the Travelers Property and Casual Insurance Policy Renewal Proposal for a cost of $714,741.
Second. It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Mason. Is that a Clemson Tiger or a Georgia Bulldog? No, I'm just playing. I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm playing.
Number 1 team, Clemson.
Oh, it's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Mason. Any more discussion? Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps we should reconsider
Yes, sir.
this.
Oh, okay, okay. All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here.
Go Dogs. Go Dogs.
Yeah. Next is item number 13. She already coming. Miss Brittany, Finance, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight I have 4 budget transfers on the agenda, and these are all to clean and wrap up FY20. And I have them numbered, so I will be going over them in order. The first one tonight, let me loosen this thing up because I really feel sorry. Okay. The first one is a transfer to the Capital Improvement Fund. And this one is to transfer $2.4 million, $2,442,594 to capital improvements. And what the plan is here is to recognize additional revenue that we received in the TAVT tax, which is the ad valorem tax. And we're recognizing an extra $1,661,134 there, and also an additional $781,460 that we received in lost collections, the local option sales tax. And then we plan to transfer that into the capital improvement fund. You have any questions about this one? Oh, this one is actually for the E911 radio SPLOS project, the additional funds that are needed to complete that project. Any questions? Okay. Number 2 is a transfer to the capital improvement fund again for $750,000. This money will be utilized to do repairs and maintenance at the detention center. And our plan for this is to move $750,000 out of contingency for new positions and move that into the capital improvement fund. Any questions about this one? Budget amendment number 3 is to bring the bottom line dollar of the facilities budget to a positive number. So we need to increase the reimbursement of expense for $425,000, and we're taking that from additional collections that we received in the lost collections. Are there any questions about this one? The final amendment I have tonight is to also move another $135,000 into the capital improvement fund to purchase a server for the IT department. And we plan to move $104,984 out of the contingency for fiscal year changes and $30,016 out of the contingency for new positions. And that will move $135,000 into the capital fund. Any questions about this one?
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, you have any questions about the budget transfer? Thank you, Ms. Brittany. Seek a motion, please. Commissioner Schultz.
I can just make one motion?
Yes.
I
Please.
move for approval of the budget transfers as articulated by our finance director.
Thank you, ma'am. It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz and second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion? All in favor? It passed 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is item number 14. Discussion and consideration of the minority business enterprise procurement policy. Mr. Kerr, out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be an amendment or an addendum to our county purchasing policy, and this is a policy that is directed at recruiting or targeting minority businesses for contracts and doing business with the county. A lot of this language is lifted from the GDOT website on the information that they use for minority contracting. And essentially, what we're doing here, we are making sure that minority businesses and business owners understand that the county is enthusiastically welcoming participation of minority businesses in all that we do, whether it's contracting for a large construction project or whether it is acting as a supplier for whatever office supplies that we may need. So this policy includes some formal outreach to those businesses, including we have already discussed in conducting a minimum of 2 on-site training type classes for filling out our vendor packets and explaining to individuals, and this is for all people, anybody who's interested in becoming a vendor, what it takes to become a certified vendor for the county, But also, we'll be beginning the process of making videos that we can post on our purchasing website, and also doing webinars that are particularly targeting minority businesses. In addition to that, we'll be putting together a list of those minority-owned businesses and distributing those to our, who are certified vendors, and distributing those to our department heads so that they can have a list of minority-owned businesses that they can make sure that when they do seek out a supplier or a vendor, that those minority-owned businesses get the same review as other businesses might. In a lot of cases, we have lists of vendors that we use. For instance, in particular, most often in the Public Works Department, where we have a list of vendors, and we try to rotate those and try to spread as much business around as we possibly can to everyone on an equal basis. But we'd like to extend that to all the departments and do it as a matter of course for whatever type of service, whether it's the need for an electrician or again, whether it's a need for office supplies. So, and pardon me. To that end, what we have established, what we would like here is we've adopted or would like to adopt a preliminary overall goal, and I'm just going to read this verbiage for the benefit of the board and the public. County hereby would adopt a preliminary overall goal of awarding 30% of its contracts to minority business enterprises in the calendar year of 2021. This goal is not a quota. Quotas are illegal, and so this is not a quota, and is sought to be achieved using entirely race-neutral criteria. The county intends to study the local market for various commonly procured goods and services with the aim of updating this policy with industry-specific formal minority business enterprise procurement goals. While these studies are undertaken, the county will compile its minority business enterprise list and use that list as a way to measure progress toward the preliminary 30% overall goal. So we're setting ourselves a goal to try to work towards while we do look to have this study done of what, this study would include information that would tell us what the number of minority-owned businesses are in Newton County, what types of businesses those are, and so that we could know what types of services or goods and services would be purchased. Also, what we would want to do is take a look at, we would further define what our market is. There are some, in some instances, we could satisfy a goal, that goal, by staying locally here in Newton County. In other instances, we might have to look at metropolitan Atlanta, and in other instances still, it may be that we would need to look at the entire state of Georgia as our market. So there's a lot that we have to consider going into that, but as a start, we'll be developing the lists, and we'll be doing targeted mailings and so forth to try to, in an attempt to try to attract our minority contractors. We do some business with minority vendors currently, but we do know that there are minority vendors out there who don't, for one reason or another, do business with the county, and we would like to make sure that they're aware that we're here and that we welcome their business and that we would like to do business with them.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lord, I have a question and I have a follow-up question. How many minority businesses have we hired this year?
I'll be honest with you, Chairman, or excuse me, Commissioner. I'd have to go back and take a look because a lot of the minority businesses that we have been in the way of subcontractors for some of our projects. So I'd have to go. I would just have to do some research on that to find out.
Second follow-up and last question is in 2021, when I think we get to do it 30%, what you are referring to, how will we know, how will the public know exactly how many minority businesses that they have? Is we gonna have it on the website, or it's gonna be published in some sort of way? Or I mean, I'm asking.
We could do that. We could post it on the website to put those results up there. That could be part of our project as well.
Commissioner Schultz and then Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Lloyd. I certainly am in favor of this procurement policy. However, I believe that we need to also address women-owned businesses. So there needs to be, I think that we need to add minority and women-owned business and have a clause that speaks to women-owned business. I know that I bid on a lot of projects with my own business, and most states and municipal jurisdictions where we bid, there is a clause, there is additional consideration for, in the same clause, it says minority and women-owned business. So I would like to add that if we need to, I don't know, when we approve this, if we need to go back and add that to this particular language, I would suggest that we do that. I think that that will show that we are a very progressive county.
So currently what we have is that we have the state of Georgia recognizes 5 minority groups: Asian American, Native American, African American, Hispanic, Latino, and Pacific Islander. So you would like to add, I guess we would need to strike state of Georgia and then add women.
Women-owned
I guess, and
businesses.
then we would need to, we'd need to verify because under this definition it says minority means an individual who's a member of a race, which we'd have to wordsmith this, is a member of a race which comprises less than 50% of the total population. So maybe we just say minority means an individual who is Asian American, Native American, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Pacific Islander, or a woman.
Well, I guess I'm not sure that a woman is considered a minority, but I think that that second category is minority.
Yeah, it was yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it's Mr. Kerr, I think we ought to just add women-owned business to what you already have.
Minority and
women-owned.
So minority and women-owned business enterprise procurement
Yes.
policy. Maybe that's how we.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We can certainly do that. That's easy enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to basically state that I'm definitely in favor of this. I believe this will give Newton County the opportunity to expand its network of contractors and vendors, and will give more small businesses the opportunity to really be able to do business with the county. I know when I ran for my campaign in 2018, in District 2, there were several small business owners in District 2 that would love to do business with the county, but they're basically, I guess, didn't get that opportunity, and so they're going to, Atlanta or Gwinnett to actually do business when they are taxpayers here in Newton County. So I think this will be a great opportunity for us to be able to reach out to those small business owners that live here, and even be able to have a registry of those small business owners so that I think like our county manager said, where they can bid to be the contractor, or if, not, they can be the subcontractor on various projects that we have. And I think that's going to really show that we are striving to really build our small businesses here, because I know a community, a lot of times they thrive off of small business owners. So I think this will be a great opportunity for us to be able to move forward and put this in place. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the preliminary goal of 30% overall, I want to make sure I understand, we're not going to attain that goal by excluding non-minority contractors. We're just going to try to attain that goal by expanding the promotion, the encouragement, and the awareness to the minority owners.
Right. Regardless of what we do, we would always want to get the best contract or the best bid, whatever it is. However, what we want to do is to make sure that we are doing our utmost to attract minority businesses or minority business owners to bid. In the past, we have not had very much minority participation in. When we put out an RFP for bid, we don't have a whole lot of minority participation. We do have participation when we have a lot of the smaller jobs that we have. We do have minority contractors who do that. A lot of times, a lot of the folks that do work with us with Public Works are independent contractors. We do have a number of minority businesses who work with Public Works, but we would always want to get the best contract, the best conditions and all that we have. But we want to try to get that, we want to work towards that goal of 30% because we haven't had the participation. And so we're trying to work towards that to make sure that we are getting the participation. It could be, but one of the important things about doing a study is once we determine, at this point we really don't know how many businesses we have here that are minority owned or controlled. So, and again, we don't know. I mean, if we were looking for an engineering firm to do a site plan for us, and we needed some geotechnical engineers, I'm not sure how far we'd have to go to find a minority-owned geotechnical engineering firm. I don't know whether you'd have to go to Metro Atlanta or somewhere statewide. So by doing the study, it would give us that information. And it may be that we need to adjust that number to be more reflective of what the community is. What we want to, because ideally what we want to do is, is keep the people here in Newton County working. So what we contract should reflect what is the population, what are the local businesses in the county. And so that's really where our goal is. And we're starting with that 30% number, and we're going to see then where it goes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In principle, I agree with everything that you got here. I also agree with Commissioner Schultz's assessment that we need to, if you're going to do a policy such as this, you should add women-owned businesses to this. My only issue is I have not had a chance to really read this in conjunction with the purchasing policy. And I didn't get this till yesterday afternoon. I would like to spend some time with the attorney and just ask a few questions that may be relevant before I would consider voting on this tonight. Nothing to discuss publicly here, just a few things that I'd like to just get her opinion on some things. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I would ask you to consider tabling it just to let me get my thoughts out.
Right. In going through it, we're going to have to revise to comment. I think that might, we are going to have to make some, definitely some changes in here, so.
So guys, I just want to be up front. I think, and Mr. Curry, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The minority contract that we given out, I think was the Fosters, it may be like $100 and something $1,000. The subs that we've given out is because, and I'm gonna be open and up front because I think this, it's crazy to me. The subs that we're giving out is contracts that Jason and Billy had to beg folks to do. And I'm gonna just be honest, that nobody else would take. And they went and found some African-American guys to do some of the things that nobody else would do. And that's a shame. That's a shame. They can find somebody to pour a slab over at the Judicial Center. So they had to go find some guys to do that type of work. That's a shame. I don't know what we need to work out, but I hope that we can get it worked out really quickly. I've been here 4 years. And there have been millions of dollars given out from this horseshoe through road projects, building buildings, now fire stations, Judicial Center. You don't see any African American contractors over there. I don't see, and I'll be over there now, and I've been at these places, I don't see any minority owned businesses there. No, I don't see the business owner. But if I did I don't know, it's difficult to understand why we wouldn't want to pass something like this. It's just really difficult to understand. Those are my thoughts. But are you making that in the form of a motion, Commissioner?
Well, I don't think anybody here is trying to make it difficult to pass anything like this. For me, I just want an opportunity to read this a little more in conjunction with the procurement policy. We've also talked about in the past the liability insurance limits. I don't know if we've modified those or not to where on small jobs we could lower the liability limits, which may be a incentive for minority businesses to apply to more different jobs. And for me, I've got it's just some legal questions I think I need to talk to the attorney about. I don't need to discuss it here in this forum, but I don't think anybody is against this type policy. For me, I would just like to table it just for an opportunity to read it a little bit more and think it through. Yeah, the next meeting, I think we'll be ready.
Okay, so you making that in the form of table?
Yes.
The motion?
I'd like to table it till the next meeting, and then we'll be ready to vote on it.
Okay. Can I get a
That should
second?
give me plenty of time.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Cowan and second by Commissioner Schultz that we table this. Discussion, Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's very important, we can make a motion, we can second it, and then we can ask the county manager to go out and kind of work it out. You come back in 2021, you find out that what we really were talking about may have been nothing, because you got to have somebody at some point to be able to at least give some of these contractors, minority contractors, an opportunity to do some of the work. And I think if we said 30%, even if I think, Mr. Chair, you said you didn't like to see it. You had to go out and find somebody to pour a slab. It was a minority, small business. Then maybe that may be the case, what you have to do. And you need to keep a track of it, because, because we can say something this year and next year, and if you're not careful, I have to ask Ms. Jackie what we do last year. And so we may forget about it when extra time come down to hire these people. So let's try to get it right if we can.
Thank you, sir. Anyone, Commissioner Schultz?
So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this policy, but I just want to make sure that all those concerns that I have about the women only are integrated through here, and we have a clean policy that we are very comfortable with. So I just want to make sure that we are very clear that this is tabled till the next meeting and not indefinite. Because I think it's important that we move forward.
And Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, after I talk with the county attorney, I'll talk with the county manager about any concerns that we have or any recommendations, and then he'll incorporate that into a policy to bring back. Is that right? If he's in agreement with it.
If you don't mind, I would love to be in that meeting when y'all have it.
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Anyone else? All in favor? Stand tabled to our next meeting. Thank you so much. Next is citizen comments. This is an opportunity that we allow citizens to make comments about any subject. You may come at this time. You have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
It's me again. Sarah Hall and 160 Benny's Terrace, Covington, Georgia 30014. I've actually never done citizens comments, so this is very strange. But I really had something I forgot from the JDA announcement earlier. I just wanted to take a moment and recognize we lost one of our members of the JDA, and it's just, again, just a very sad moment. Mr. Carl Penniman, the chairman of Jasper County, passed away recently last Sunday. He was actually one, and many of you probably know more about him than I do, but I've just had the pleasure of working with him, and I apologize for missing that in the JDA update. But again, sorely missed. We're certainly going to miss his leadership, his support, and leadership around Jasper County and then the fruition of Stanton Springs at this time. And so I just wanted to take a moment and recognize him on this. And obviously, too, Miss Lisa as well. She was an integral part of our office and that. So just two great people, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Gene Wills, 125 Homestead Way, Covington, Georgia. It's nice to be here amongst you commissioners. And I was watching, well, I read the paper that the judge was in favor of, well, I guess they lost Sons of Confederacy, and the young lady lost their case. They didn't really have any good standing. And you, as the commissioners, has decided to wait 30 days. And as I look at it, they didn't bring a real strong case. And the sooner we put this situation to bed, we can move on. We are working hard, East Metro and NAACP, to get these votes together to support the candidates, and we like to have our focus on that. So I just want to remind the commissioners that citizens are still concerned, and this is never a personal battle. It's a right or wrong battle. So I think it'd be a good idea to put this to bed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Commissioner Edwards. Thank you. Commissioner Mason. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to call this board's attention to the fact that there were 2 homes in District 3 over the Labor Day weekend that burned. The families lost substantial property. The first family is the Tucker Washington family, and they have a GoFundMe page. If you want to contribute to that GoFundMe page, I have that information on my Facebook page, but you can also, I'll be happy to provide that link to you. Also, the second family was the Clerk family. I have not been able to make contact with the Clerk family. The phone number that I had was an incorrect phone number, but I have talked to Chief Stapp, and so I just would like to encourage you to keep these families in your prayers. It'll be several months before they are back into a permanent home.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a comment. I mean, it's one that is kind of weighed heavy on me. And the comment is about our factory shows and the young gentleman who passed along with a friend who was trying to save him. That's my understanding. And Miss Tanya Hardeman, who is his mother. For years, we've had that park over there, and we put a sign out that said, swim at your own risk. And people have died swimming. And we just seem like we get deaf ears, closed ears. We either need to close it or make it safe. Maybe we need to put somebody there to let people swim. Maybe we need to go take a good look at it. Because I think it's too many people who are losing their life down there for us to sit up and be silent. I know DJ Hardeman personally. He came a few times to my home. His mother and my wife are good friends, and his grandfather and I are good friends. And to say nothing, there's going to be somebody else get drowned down there. Just want to go out and just do a little swimming and get a little cool, but it's a deathbed. And I think even though we put signs to swim at your own risk, it makes me feel awfully bad knowing that people are dying down there from swimming, and we just said nothing. We need to clean that place up down there. We need to make it safe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cowan. No comments. Thank you, sir. I was going to mention Sarah and Lisa. I was going to mention Lisa and Carl. Sarah beat me to it, but I am going to say Carl was the longest serving commissioner in the state of Georgia, the chairman down in Jasper County. And the longest serving commissioner. And Carl did a lot down at the JDA to get that going. I think he was here with Davis Morgan and all of them when they was, Miss Barbara Morgan sits out there now, so I know she knows Carl. But Carl and I sat on some boards together, and we was good friends, and he loved his community. And he loved the fact that he had Jasper County part of the Stanton Springs, and he always let us know, we got one over on y'all. And so I'm sure he's looking down now saying, Mr. Chairman, we still got one over on you guys. But he just was a great guy. And I was able to attend his funeral, and he was loved. You could tell he was loved throughout the state. There were so many elected officials there, man. It was unbelievable. Also, Miss Lisa, I tell the story all the time. When I first got elected, and I was sitting in my office, and of course, Miss Lisa was Chairman Ellis' assistant as well. And I remember the first day that I was sitting in my office, and I ain't gonna lie, I was scared, didn't know what to do. And Miss Lisa peeped in there and said, "Hey, I got this out here. You need to get out there and start beating them streets and start building relationships." And she said, "Go on, get going." And I never forget it. And she was really very encouraging. She helped me so much my first year in office. I mean, man, if it went for her, I don't know what I would have done, but I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to know her as a person, and I'm just thankful. So y'all please keep her family and Carl's family in prayers. Also, the board did not agree. I don't know if you need to look at our website again. We did not agree to wait 30 days to remove that statute. So that's not true. We did not wait or agree to that. We did not agree to wait to do that. So that's not true. Also, on Saturday, at the hour of 10 o'clock, I'll be doing a back-to-school drive out at the Publix on Brown Bridge and Salem Road. We're giving away 500 backpacks and supplies and masks and hand sanitizer and laptops and shoes. I don't think what else. Shoes to the kids. So if you know anybody that need any of those items, please send them that way. I have. I hope I did. I will. I hope my folks did it tonight. So yeah, I definitely will. So we're excited about that. We'll be out there until items are gone. We do have a need for executive session tonight. Personnel, potential land, purchase of land. Also, well, we will not be taking a vote tonight. So thank you all for being here tonight, and we greatly appreciate you. I seek a motion that we move into executive session. Is it a motion by Commissioner Henderson and a second by Commissioner Schultz? All in favor? Pass 5-0.